Very good afternoon, dear students. I hope you all are safe at your place. The thought of the day is never stop learning because life never stop teaching. As you all know that the pandemic situation is there, you never thought that you are going to learn your second year BCom via online lectures. So this is something new that life teach you. Clear? So there are uncertainty always there in life. So of course, what are you going to help you? Your knowledge is going to help you each and every step. So never stop learning. That knowledge will help you ultimately somewhere in your life. And this is the best time that you can learn the things that in which you are interested. So start learning. I, Professor Sonal Agrawal, welcome you all on the digital platform of Agrawal Vidya Vihar English Medium College. This is the lecture for the subject Banking Law and Practice Paper 2. In the last lecture, we have started that our last unit, that is the guarantee, in which we have discussed the meaning of guarantee, that the guarantee is a promise by a third party to the lender for the present or the future date of the borrower that person is going to discharge the liability of the third person in case of default. The definition of the guarantee is given under the section number 126 of Indian Contract Act 1872. In that, we have discussed the essential features of the guarantee, the basic types of the guarantee on the basis of number of transactions. Then we have discussed the parties which are involved in the contract of guarantees. Then we have discussed the rights of the guarantor, or you can say the rights of the third party. After that, we discussed the discharge of surety, or it is popularly known as the end of guarantee. After that, we discussed the rights of the creditors against the surety. And in the last lecture, we discussed the advantages and the disadvantages of guarantee. These all are the topics that we covered in this unit. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss the precautions to be observed in taking guarantee. That, as you all know, we have discussed the disadvantages of guarantee in the last lecture. That so many risks attached if you as a banker grant the loan in the security of guarantee. So to avoid these types of risk, which are the precautions that must be taken by the banker, and which are the points that should be keep in mind by the banker at the time of granting the loan on the security of guarantee. So we are going to discuss these all precautions. The first precaution is ascertain the solvency and integrity of the guarantor. The second, the capacity to contract. Next, the banker do not approach a guarantor. Next, a type of guarantee. Next, execution of contract of guarantee. Next, explanation of the clauses in the form. Next, do not duty of the inform voluntarily. And the next is joint and several liability. The next is periodical confirmation. The next is death, lunacy, and insolvency of principal debtor. And the last topic for this topic is death, lunacy, and insolvency of the guarantor. These all points we are going to discuss one by one in detail. So now let's start with the first point, that is the ascertains solvency and integrity of the guarantor. The rule says that at the time of granting the loan on the security or guarantee, in that situation, the banker has to find out that the guarantor is a solvent person or not, what is the integrity of that guarantor, all these things the banker has to find out. Now the question arises that how to ascertain the solvency and integrity of the guarantor. So the answer is to find out the solvency of the guarantor. What the banker can do, the banker can check the property which are registered with the name of the guarantor. If there are such a property, some of the property which are registered with the name of the guarantor, in that situation, of course, you can say that the guarantor is a solvent person. You can check the financial statements of the guarantor, that the guarantor is doing some of the business. So what is the income statement? What are the profits of the business of the guarantor? So on the basis of property which are registered with the name of guarantor, and on the basis of the financial statement, or you can say the income statement, your income tax return, documents. On the basis of these documents, the banker can analyze that the guarantor is a solvent person or not. Now the second question arises that how to check the integrity. So to check the integrity, the banker has to check the past records. Suppose in the past the guarantor has taken any loan, so whether the guarantor has paid the loan with the interest in time or not, what are the times of default that the guarantor make in the past loan, is any case is registered with the name of the guarantor or not. So these all things the banker can check to check the integrity of the guarantor. Okay, integrity means here the guarantor must be an honest person. Now, how to check the honesty from the past records also? Of course, you cannot check the honesty for the future. You can check the honesty from the past records only. So the banker can check the past record to check the integrity of the guarantor. So what is this? The banker should inquiry about the financial position and the integrity of the proposed guarantor. Here the guarantor is a proposed guarantor. Why? Because the guarantee is not done yet. The banker is finding the fact of the solvency and integrity of the guarantor. If it is find good, then only the proposed guarantor become the guarantor. I hope it is clear. So what the banker has to do? The banker has to find out the ascertain the solvency point of view and the integrity of the guarantor. To check the solvency of the guarantor, the banker can check the income statement and you can say the assets which are registered with the name of the guarantor. With these two aspects, the banker can check out the solvency of the guarantor, and to check the integrity of the guarantor, the banker has to check the past records. Clear? Whether the past loan are paid in time or not, whether any case is registered with the name of the guarantor, the guarantor is a good person or not. So these all things the banker has to check before granting the loan on the security of guarantee. The second one is about the capacity to contract. The banker should examine whether the proposed guarantor has the capacity to enter into the contract or not. Now the same question arises that how to check the capacity. So the capacity depends on the especially the business of the guarantor. Clear? The banker has to check. Solvency is mostly depends on the assets which are registered with the name of the guarantor. And to check the capacity, the banker has to check the financial position on the basis of business of the guarantor. Clear? Capacity here means you can say the profit that the guarantor is earning, or you can say the income of the guarantor for a particular period of time. So if there is a sources of income, then only the guarantor is you can say the capable person to enter into the contract. Suppose the guarantor is a senior citizen, he has a retired one, and of course as you all know that in case of old age the sources of incomes are limited. Clear? So sometimes there is no source of income also after retirement. So in that situation, whether there is some of the assets which are registered with the name of the customer, even though the source of income is nullified, so the guarantor is not in the capacity to enter into the contract. So there must be a regular source of income. If there is a regular source of income, then only the guarantor is the capable person to enter into the contract. So here what the banker can check, the banker has to check the capacity in the form of income, that the person is able to earn the regular income or not. If the guarantor is able to earn the regular income, then only the guarantor is the capable person to enter into the contract. The next one that the banker has to check is about banker do not approach a guarantor. The rule says that the banker should not approach any person to give the guarantee for an advance which is made to the borrower. Clear? The guarantor is a third party and the guarantor is approached by the borrower. Clear? The guarantor is the person from the side of the borrower. The banker should not approach any guarantor to give the guarantee in behalf of the borrower. Clear? The borrower is the person who has to approach the guarantor. This is the rule. The next precaution that the banker has to check is about the type of the guarantee. A person who is a banker should prefer a continued guarantee rather than a specific guarantee. In that topic type of guarantee, we have discussed that on the basis of number of transactions, there are basically two types of the guarantee. First one is the specific guarantee and second one is the continued guarantee. Specific guarantee for a single number of transactions and the continued guarantee is for more than one transaction, but the maximum limit is given and the maximum time period is given. So in case of guarantee, whenever banker is going to lend the amount on the security of guarantee, so this is advisable that the banker should prefer the continued guarantee rather than the specific guarantee. Why? Because in case of continued guarantee, more than one transactions are covered. Clear? The more you can say, the more security is there if there is a continued guarantee. So the banker should be prefer continued guarantee, not the specific guarantee. And if the guarantee covers only a part of the loan, then the banker should insist the customer to deposit some more collateral security. Suppose for an example, the loan that the customer want is 10 lakh rupees, and the guarantor, who is the third party, is ready to give the guarantee for just 5 lakh rupees. So here only the part of the loan is covered. Clear? The guarantee is given for 5 lakh rupees and the person require the loan for 10 lakh rupees. So only the half of the part is covered as a guarantee. So for the remaining half of the part, the banker should ask the customer to submit or to give some of the other collateral security. Clear? Without getting the other security, the banker should not grant the loan if the guarantee covers only the part of the loan. I hope it is clear. If again I am repeating, if the guarantee covers only a part of the loan, then the banker should insist the customer to deposit some other collateral security with the guarantee. Clear? Guarantee is there for the 5 lakh rupees, but for another 5 lakh rupees, the banker should ask for some of the security. It may be any tangible security or any asset which is registered with the name of the customer. So the banker should not grant the loan if only a part of amount is covered. The banker should grant the loan only and only when the full amount is covered as the guarantee. If not, then the banker should ask for more security. I hope it is clear. So in what you have to explain in the types of the guarantee, that basically there are two types of the guarantee. First one is the specific guarantee and second one is the continued guarantee. And from the banker's point of view, the continued guarantee is more preferable. The banker should prefer the continued guarantee rather than the specific guarantee. And if any guarantee covers only a part of the loan, in that situation, the banker should ask the customer to deposit some more collateral security. Banker should not grant the advance without getting the another security. Why? Because only the part of the amount is covered, not the full amount of loan is covered under the contract of guarantee. So the banker should ask for the another security, and after getting the security, the banker should grant the loan. And if full amount of the loan is covered under the guarantee, then the banker can grant the loan. These all things you have to explain here under the types of guarantee. The next point that the banker should keep in mind is the execution of contract of guarantee. So this point is related with the written contract. Guarantee, here the rule says, the definition says that the guarantee is a promise given by the third party to discharge the liability of the principal debtor in case of default. But here this promise should not be in the oral form. Clear? This promise must be in a written form and there must be a contract of guarantee. So the execution of contract of guarantee follows the banker's satisfactions over the securities or the sureties, financial stability and the capacity of the contract. Why? Because in the contract of guarantee, the guarantor has to sign the form. The proposed guarantor is summoned by the bank, and to put the signature on the guarantee form, there is a particular guarantee form which is prepared by the bank, and this is required that the guarantor should put the signature of him on that particular form, and the guarantee should be taken on the bank's approval form only. Clear? The guarantee form cannot be prepared by any other party. It must be by the prepared by the bank, and it must be approved by the bank also. Clear? The stamp of the bank should be there, and the stamp is proof of the approval that done by the bank, and the letter of guarantee should be signed by the guarantor on the presence of one official person of bank. Clear? So that official person is the witness of the contract of guarantee, and the signature of that witness is also required. Clear? So what is this all about? Execution of contract of guarantee means a contract is executed, a contract of guarantee is executed. Why? Because the guarantee must be taken in a written form, in a contractual form. It should not be taken on an oral form, and this contractual form must be prepared by the bank and must be approved by the bank. Clear? The stamp of the bank is a proof of the approval that the bank has approved this contract of guarantee. And the guarantee form must be signed by the guarantor. If the guarantor is not signed that form, in that situation, the banker should not grant the loan. Why? Because there is no evidence of the promise given by the guarantor. The signature is the evidence that the guarantee is given by the third party for the discharge of the liability in case of default. So the signature is essential on the contract of guarantee, and again that signature must be done on the witness of one official person, on the presence of one official person of the bank as a witness, and the signature of that witness is also required on the contract of guarantee. So these all are the procedure to execute the contract of guarantee. Why? Because in case of default or in case of any uncertainty, the banker can use that contract of guarantee as evidence in court. The next precaution that the banker should take is a explanation of the clause in the form. Clear? The banker should be prepared to explain the nature and the effects of any clause if the question is asked by the guarantor. Clear? There are so many clauses, there are so many rules which are written on the form of the guarantee, and it is the duty of the banker that to explain the clause. Clause means the rules and regulations which are written, terms and conditions which are written on the contract of guarantee. That terms and conditions are known as the clauses. Clear? Here, if any clause is written on the form, here which form we are talking about? Here we are talking about the form of the guarantee, the contract of guarantee, that form. Clear? For that form, if any clause is written on the contract of guarantee, and if the customer, if the guarantor is not able to understood that clause, and if the explanation is asked by the guarantor, in that situation, the banker should be prepared to explain in detail about that clause, and the banker has to furnish the right information about that clause. Clear? So the banker should not explain any wrong information that may harm the interest of the guarantor. So that explanation is required, but again, if it is asked by the guarantor, then only. The next precaution that the banker has to take is about no duty to inform voluntarily. This point is related with the point that explanation of the form, explanation of the clause in the form, that we discussed just that if the question is asked by the guarantor, then the banker has to explain the clause. Then the banker must be ready to explain the clause. But here there is a no duty of a banker to inform or to explain the clauses voluntarily if it is not asked by the guarantor. Clear? If it is asked by the guarantor, then only the banker has to explain, otherwise not. There is a no duty or there is a no obligation to inform or to explain all the rules and regulation voluntarily to the guarantor. And the second point, that if the guarantor asked any information related to the account of the customer, related to the account of the principal data, in that situation, the banker has to inform, the banker has to give all the information which are related with the interest of the guarantor to the party, to the third party, and the banker should not hide any information which may affect the interest of the guarantor. Clear? Again, but the same rule applied, that the banker has to reveal this information if it is asked by the guarantor. For an example, the guarantor wants to know that for what amount he is liable in case of continued guarantee. In that situation, the banker has to inform about the contents or about the extent of the liability for which the guarantor is liable. But banker should not give this information voluntarily to the guarantor. This is not the part of the duty of the guarantor. But again, the banker has to maintain the secrecy of customer's account also. Clear? The banker has to explain, or the banker has to inform only those informations which are in the interest of the guarantor, but the banker should not explain, or banker should not inform all the information related to the account of the customer. Clear? So here there is a duty of the banker, that the banker has to take care of to fulfill the objective, that both the interest of the customer must be saved and the interest of the guarantor must be saved. Clear? Do not disclose any, you can say, the personal information from the account of the customer, while this is the duty of the banker to maintain the secrecy of customer's account. So here, if the banker is able to maintain the secrecy, so the interest of the customer is also maintained, and if the banker informed the information which are in interest of the guarantor, then the interest of the guarantor is also maintained. So this type of information must be given by the banker to the guarantor, but not voluntarily, only when the guarantor is asked, with certain precautions. The next point that the banker has to keep in mind is about the joint and several liabilities. Here, joint liability means we are talking about the joint guarantee. Clear? If more than one person has given the guarantee for the same loan or for the different loan, in that situation, there is a no advance should be made until the signature of all the proposed guarantor are obtained on the contract of guarantee. Clear? In the execution of contract of guarantee, we have discussed that the guarantee must be taken on a written form. It should not be taken orally. Clear? The signature of proposed guarantor is required on the contract of guarantee. So if there are more than one person who are ready to take the guarantee for the same date or for the different date, so in that situation, what the banker has to do, there is a signature of all the guarantor which is required on the contract of guarantee. Until the signature of all the guarantor is not made on the contract of guarantee, in that situation, the banker should not grant the loan to the customer. Clear? The banker should grant the loan to the customer only and only when the signature of all the proposed guarantor is made on the contract of guarantee. So this point the banker should be keep in mind in the case of joint liability or in case of several liability, that if joint liability is there, joint liability and several liability here means if more than one person is the guarantor, so the signature of all the guarantors is required on the contract of guarantee. The next one is about the periodical confirmation. The periodical confirmation of the guarantee should be obtained from the guarantor or from the all of the guarantors. Why? Because the banker should get the information. It must be duly signed also by the borrower. Why this is so? Because the balance of the debt can be avoided and the agreement cannot become the time paid agreement. Clear? Suppose the continuous guarantee given for the 5 years. So in that situation, after a particular period of time, the banker has to check the confirmation that the guarantor is ready to continue the guarantee, the guarantor is able to continue the guarantee according to the financial conditions. So this periodical confirmation is required if the continued guarantee is given for a longer time period or for a more amount. Clear? Suppose for a 1 year the guarantee is given for 50 lakh rupees. So monthly or quarterly, the banker has to ask the guarantor that the guarantor is wish to continue the guarantee or not, and this confirmation must be made again on a written form. Means again the confirmation signature is asked by the banker from the guarantor, and that signature is the proof in case of any contingency arise. So that signature, that confirmation document is used by the banker as a evidence. So the periodical confirmation is required from the whom from the guarantor that the guarantor is continue the guarantor is willing to continue the guarantee and he is in the capacity to continue the guarantee. So this periodical confirmation is required in case of continued guarantee for a longer time period. The time period must be decided by the banker as per the convenience. Clear? There is no rule about the periodical confirmation. It may be monthly, it may be quarterly, it may be yearly also according to the convenience of the guarantor. So, not the guarantor, according to the convenience of the banker. Next, that death, lunacy, insolvency of the principal debtor. Suppose the principal debtor who had the customer who has taken the loan, if the principal debtor dies or he become lunatic or he become insolvent person, so when a customer when a banker receive this type of information about the notice of death, insanity or the insolvency of the principal debtor, in that situation the banker must close the account of the principal debtor and he must demand the money, he must demand the payment from the guarantor. Why? Because now the principal debtor is no longer available, or he is no longer in the capacity to pay the amount. So this is the best time, or this is the, you can say, the right time to close the account of the principal debtor and use the right as a lender against the guarantor and ask from the guarantor to pay the amount which is due against the principal debtor. So what the person has to do, what the banker has to do, if the banker has received any notice regarding the death or the insanity or the lunacy or the insolvency of the principal debtor, in that situation the banker has to close the account of the principal debtor. Means now no more transaction should be there in the account of principal debtor, and whatever amount due, for the due amount, for the default amount, the banker has to contact to the guarantor to pay the amount. And the last point that the precautions the banker has to take is about the death, lunacy, and insolvency of the guarantor. Suppose the guarantor dies, or there is an insanity or the insolvency happen with the guarantor. In that situation, what the banker has to do? In that situation, the banker should break the account of the principal debtor and open a new account with the name of the principal debtor to avoid the operations according to the rules of Clayton case, and he must not make any further advance if the guarantee is a continued one. Why? Because the guarantee is given by the guarantor and the guarantor is no longer available. The guarantor dies or the guarantor becomes the insolvent person. Here, so in case of in continue guarantee, the banker should not grant more loans, more fund to the borrower, and the banker should try to recover the amount which is given by the banker to the customer from the customer or from the asset of the guarantor as soon as possible. Yes, so what the banker has to do if the banker receives the notice about death, lunacy, insanity, or the insolvency of the guarantor, in that situation, the banker has to close the further lending in the account of the principal debtor, and the banker has to try the best to recover the past dues clear from the principal debtor or from the assets of the guarantor from which it is possible, and the bankers try to recover this amount as soon as the possible. So these all are the precautions that must be observed by the banker at the time of taking guarantee as a security, or you can say at the time of granting the loan on the basis of guarantee. So these all are the precautions. What are they? The first point is about the ascertain the solvency and integrity of the guarantor. How to check the solvency? Of course, from the property which are registered with the name of the guarantor, the banker has to check the property, that how much property is registered with the name of the guarantor. And of course, the guarantor has to check the integrity of the guarantor. The banker has to check the integrity of the guarantor, that whether the guarantor is a honest person or not, whether any criminal record is there with the name of the guarantor or not. So this all things the banker has to check. Banker has to check that the past loan taken by the guarantor is paid in time or not. So these all things the banker has to check the solvency and integrity of the guarantor. The next point is about the capacity to contract. The banker has to check that the guarantor is in the capacity to enter into the contract or not. Here contract means the contract of guarantee. So how to check this capacity? So here the capacity depends on the income flow. If there is a source of income, if there is a regular source of income, then only the guarantor is in the capacity to enter into the contract. If there is a no regular source of income, then the guarantor, then the person who is the third party is not in the capacity to enter into the contract of guarantee. So here to check the capacity, the banker has to check the regular sources of income. The next point is about banker do not approach to the guarantor. Why? Because this is the duty of the principal debtor. This is the duty of the borrower, that the borrower has to approach the guarantor. There is no duty that the banker approach the guarantor. According to the rule, the banker cannot approach a guarantor to give the guarantee in behalf of the principal debtor. The next one is about the type of guarantee. There are two types of guarantee. The first one is the specific guarantee and the second one is the continue guarantee. And from the banker's point of view, the continue guarantee is more preferable one. So the banker have to ask to the guarantor to give the continued guarantee in spite of the specific guarantee. And if the guarantee covers the part of the loan of the part amount of the loan, in that situation, the banker has to ask the customer to submit more security, and without getting the security, the banker should not grant the loan. And if the guarantee covers the full amount of loan, then of course the banker can grant the loan. So these all are the precautions that banker has to keep in mind at the time of lending on the basis of guarantee. The next is about the execution of contract of guarantee. There must be a contract, means the guarantee must be given in a written form. That contract must be signed by the guarantor in the witness of one official person of bank. The next point is about the explanation of the clauses in the form. Whatever clauses are written on the contract of guarantee, if any explanation is asked by the guarantor, then the banker has to explain that clause which are written on the form. And there is no duty to inform voluntarily. The rule says that the banker has to disclose the information of customers' account which are in interest of the guarantor if any information is asked by the guarantor. If no information is asked by the guarantor, then banker should not disclose any information related to the account of the principal debtor. And with at the time of explaining or at the time of giving the information, the banker has to keep in mind the rule of the maintenance of secrecy of customers' account also. So the banker has to disclose only those information which are in interest of guarantor. Next point is about the joint and several liability. If there is a joint or several liability, if there are more than one person who are ready to take the guarantee in behalf of the principal debtor for the same date or for the different date, in that situation, the signature of all the guarantors are required on the contract of guarantee. Till the signature of all the guarantor is not made on the contract of guarantee, the banker should not grant the loan. The banker should grant the loan only and only when the signature of all the guarantors are made on the contract of guarantee in case of joint liability. The next point is the periodical confirmation, that in case of continued guarantee it is for a longer time period, so the periodical confirmation is required from the guarantor that the guarantor wish to continue the guarantee and the guarantor is in the capacity to continue the guarantee. Now the period to confirm is decided by the bank as per the convenience. Clear? This period may be monthly, it may be quarterly, it may be half yearly, it may be yearly, according to the risk factor attached with the guarantee and according to the convenience of the banker. The next point is death, lunacy, and insolvency of the principal debtor. If these types of situation arise, if the principal debtor dies or if the principal debtor become lunatic person or the insolvent person, in that situation the banker has to close the account of the principal debtor, and whatever is the dues in the account of the principal debtor, the dues must be asked by the guarantor to the banker to the guarantor, that the guarantor has to pay these dues. Why? Because the guarantor has given the promise to pay the default amount in case of the principal debtor is not able to pay. The last point is about the death, lunacy, and insolvency of the guarantor. If the guarantor dies, or if the guarantor becomes the lunatic or the insolvent person, clear, or insanitary person, in that situation, what the banker has to do, the banker has to close the account of the principal debtor, or the banker has to stop the further lending from the account of the principal debtor, and the banker has to try the best to recover the past dues, clear, from the principal debtor, if not then from the assets of the guarantor as soon as possible. So these all are the precautions that the banker should keep in mind at the time of granting the loan or at the time of giving the loan on the basis of security of the promise which is given by the third party or on the basis of guarantee, you can say. Clear? So if these all are precautions are taken by the bank, so we cannot say that there is no chances of bad debt. There is no chances of NP. Of course, it may happen after taking the precautions also. But if these types of precautions are observed by the banker, so of course the risk attached with the guarantee may reduce and the chances of NPA may reduce. So these types of precautions must be taken by the banker. I hope it is clear. This is the end of the topic. This is the end of the today's lecture. We are going to meet in the next lecture. Till then, stay home, stay safe, start learning. Have a good day.